If we've been able to get the actual NHGC background.
I've got the back of somebody's chair here. That's scattered from Michael Muir, probably falling off his chair.
Councillor Barnard, can you mute yourself, please?
I thought we weren't supposed to.
No, you are.
All right, okay. Well, I would do when I keep on pressing green.
Somebody tell me whether they can hear me.
Councillors, you're now live on YouTube.
Councillor Barnard, can you mute yourself?
I thought we weren't supposed to.
Councillor Green, we're now live on YouTube. Do you want to start the meeting?
So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this virtual annual council meeting that is being conducted with members and officers at various locations, communicating via audio, video, and online. There is also the opportunity for the public and press to listen and view proceedings. Please be guided by officers and be patient. Things may take longer than usual. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee member and scrutiny manager to explain how proceedings will work and to confirm that members and officers are in attendance. Hilary, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, I'm going to do a roll call of members and officers to make sure that you can hear and be heard. So if you can just respond, please. Councillor Albert.
Present.
Councillor Allen.
Present.
Councillor Aspinwall.
Present.
Councillor Barnard.
Present.
Councillor Claire Billing.
Here.
Councillor Judy Billing.
I'm here.
Councillor John Bishop.
Yes.
Councillor Ruth Brown.
Present.
Councillor Val Bryant. Councillor Paul Clark.
Present.
Councillor Sam Collins, I apologise.
Hello.
Councillor Bill Davidson.
Yeah.
Councillor George Davis.
Present.
Councillor Deakin Davis.
Present.
Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Present.
Councillor Derbyshire.
Present.
Councillor Frost.
Present.
Councillor Green.
Present.
Councillor Grindle.
Present.
Councillor Harwood.
Hello. Yeah.
Councillor Hone.
Present.
Councillor Hoskins.
Yeah. Here.
Councillor Hewson.
Present.
Councillor Hunter.
Present.
Councillor Jarvis.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Levitt.
Yes.
Councillor Mansell.
Yes, I'm
Councillor McNally.
Present.
Councillor Moody.
Present.
Councillor Morris.
Present, miss.
Councillor Muir.
Present.
Councillor Nash.
Present.
Councillor Nguala.
Present.
Councillor North.
Yeah.
Councillor Oliver.
Present.
Councillor Prendergast.
Present.
Councillor Rice.
Present.
Councillor Rogerio Chakir.
Present.
Councillor Shanley.
Present.
Councillor Stania.
Present.
Councillor Steers Hanscom.
Present.
Councillor Strong.
Present.
Councillor Tart. Councillor Tart.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Fake.
Present.
Councillor Tyler.
Present.
Councillor Tyson.
Present.
Councillor Weeks.
Present.
Officers, David Skulls.
Present.
Anthony Roche.
Present.
Jeanette Thompson.
Present.
Mel Stimpson.
Present.
Matt Hepburn.
Present.
And we have a couple of IT officers present as well, who will just support the meeting. Okay. So live streaming, the meeting is being streamed live on the council's YouTube channel and also being recorded on Zoom. If live streaming fails, the meeting will adjourn. If the live stream cannot be restored within a reasonable period, then the remaining business will be considered at a date and time fixed by the chair. If the chair does not affix a date, the remaining business will be considered at the next ordinary meeting. Please stay in view of the camera at all times. If for any reason the meeting is not quorate, an officer will notify attendees by interjecting the meeting. The meeting will adjourn immediately. Once the meeting is quorate, the meeting will resume. If connection cannot be restored within a reasonable period, then the remaining business will be considered at a time and date fixed by the chair. And if the chair does not fix a date, the remaining business will be considered at the next ordinary meeting. Only members present for the entire debate and consideration of an item are entitled to speak, to vote. If technology fails for a member during the debate and rejoins the meeting, they will not be able to vote on that item. Please ensure that your mobile phone is muted and that other noise emitting devices are also muted. Please activate the mute button on your tablet or your computer when you are not speaking. If you have activated the camera, then please be mindful that others can see you. You will be invited to address the council by the chair. Please show respect to each other and do not talk over someone who is already speaking or interject uninvited. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the raise hand button located under participants. Please do not use the symbols within the reaction tools. And please remember to unmute your microphone before you speak. Can I remind you that the normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. No speeches may be made after the mover has moved a proposal and explained the purpose of it until the motion has been seconded. When seconding a motion or an amendment, a member may reserve their speech until later in the debate. The mover of an amendment has no right of reply. In accordance with the Constitution, please can members ensure that no speech exceeds 5 minutes without the consent of the chair. If a member has a closure motion, personal explanation or point of order, please interject the meeting at an appropriate time by saying, Chair, I have a point of order, etc. And wait for the chair's invitation to address the meeting. If any of the officers need to address council at any point during the proceedings to aid discussions, may I ask that these respectfully interject and await a response before addressing the chair. Voting. When satisfied that there has been sufficient debate, the chair will request the committee member and scrutiny manager to read out the recommendation that members will be voting upon. When requested to vote, voting will be via the green tick for yes, red cross for no, and blue raise hand for abstain, which are located in the participant section at the bottom of your screen. To enable votes to be counted, please do not clear your votes until requested to do so. And please do not vote until it's been confirmed that all the raised hands that have been raised for speaking have then been cleared. Details of how members voted will not be kept or minuted unless a recorded vote has been requested or an individual requests that their vote be recorded, and it will not be heard or seen on audio or YouTube recordings of the meeting. The committee member and scrutiny manager will clearly state the result of the vote, and the chair will proceed to the next agenda item. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have a casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? Councillor
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Morris.
Is it an issue, thank you, Gerald Morris, Councillor Gerald Morris, is it an issue the fact that we can't see all of the officers, just their names at the moment? Is that a problem?
No, we've deliberately only put our name, our titles up.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Councillor Frost, I believe you have a question.
Yes, thank you. I can see that we've got yes and no for the votes. How, if we want to abstain, how do we vote to abstain?
That's the raise hand symbol, the same symbol you use to ask to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, I believe you have a question.
It's more of a comment than a question. Just to point out, I've got the YouTube channel on one of my other systems. And when somebody's speaking, such as I am at the moment, that person is not displayed on the YouTube screen because it's in the mass view, not the speaker view.
I'll have to leave that with an IT person, sorry.
Yeah, I was sort of informing them rather than you directly. Sorry about that.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, then can I hand over to the Chairman of the Council, Councillor Jean Green.
So good evening once again. It is with great sadness that I must relay to members Alan Millard, a former chairman of North Herts District Council, passed away on Saturday, 30th of May 2020. Alan was a councillor representing Hitchin Walsworth Ward from 2007 to 2018 and was chairman of the council in the civic year 2017-18. Having been vice chairman of the council the previous year. He served on a number of committees and was extremely active in the community, serving on several outside organisations, including Hitchin Educational Foundation, Hitchin Senior Citizens Welfare Committee, and Walsworth Community Association. He was a kind, knowledgeable man and a friend to many, with a love of photography, which he showed in the work he did for the district council and local papers. Our thoughts go to Alan's wife, Maureen, and his family at this sad and difficult time. In memory of Alan, I would now like to ask all members to observe a minute silence. Thank you.
Councillor, you have Councillor Steers Hanscom wanting to speak regarding former Councillor Millard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Alan's death has come as a great shock to all of us. As I listened to and read people's comments on hearing this news, I've learnt more and more organisations he was chair of or contributed to. It's become increasingly clear what a huge contribution he made in the community, as well as to the council. At any public event, Alan will be there with his camera, always happy to chat and make people feel at their ease. He was an early member of the Cooperative Party and a great encourager, regardless of political affiliation, in all that we sought to do. I know many colleagues in the Labour group who have told of his kindness. He was a good friend and will be sorely missed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
You also have, I believe, Councillor Clark wishing to speak.
Would Councillor Clark like to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I knew Alan for 30 years, and it is a sad loss that he's no longer with us. First met him cold and freezing mornings down at Hitchin Rugby Club, where we would often share a hearty and unhealthy breakfast in the clubhouse while the kids were out playing. We have many a discussion. Obviously, then in the council together, we agreed we wanted to get the best for our town and district. As has already been said, Alan was involved in many things across the district, all for the betterment of the residents, and he will be sorely missed by all of us and especially his family. Our condolences deepest condolences to them.
You also have Councillor Levitt.
So Councillor Levitt, would you like to speak, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I met Alan a long time before I became a councillor through his work with the Comet as a photographer, but in particular with his involvement with Walsworth Festival, which he was a very stalwart and active helper with the organisation for many years. Alan served the community as a Conservative councillor for Walsworth until he lost his seat in 2018 elections. He was Vice Chairman of the Council, as Jean said, in 2016, and Chairman of the Council in 2017-18, during which time he did much to raise the profile of North Hertfordshire, promoted many of the voluntary organisations in the district. Alan will be much missed by many people. I'm one of them. He and I shared a love of photography, and I learned a lot from him about photojournalism from his many years working from the Comet. When I was chairman of the council, the support to myself and my wife in raising the profile of the work of the local voluntary organisations that he did help it in the press was absolutely invaluable. Alan was a man of few words, but when he did speak out, what he said was well thought out and relevant, and had all the more impact for that. Alan was a big man with a big heart, a gentle giant and a true gentleman, whose life revolved around the community in which he lived and the many organisations for which he was a member and which he represented. Rest in peace, Alan. We'll all miss you.
Thank you.
Sorry, you have Councillor Michael Muir also wishing to speak.
Councillor Muir, would you like to speak, please? Have we lost Councillor Muir?
Councillor Muir, you're currently muted.
Can you hear me now? Yep.
Yes, thank you.
I first met Alan 53 years ago when I started my photography studio in Letchworth, and he worked at ICL, and the old Letchworth Citizen never had a photographer on the staff, and Alan and I used to do all the photography for many years for the Letchworth Citizen. When he then left ICL, he joined the Pictorial, which was the forerunner to the Comet, where he became an excellent press photographer. In all those years I've known him, we kept in touch, and it was myself that got him to stand as councillor. It's a great loss. I know Maureen and the family, and it's a great loss, as we've already heard, for the community of Hitchin, which he served very well. Alan, rest in peace.
Thank you.
That's all the requests to speak, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we'll go on to the election of the chair for this coming year. Can I call upon in nominations, please?
Chair, you have Councillor Clark wishing to speak.
Councillor Clark, please.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Terry Tyler as chair.
Do we have a seconder for this?
You have Councillor Jarvis, Chair.
Councillor Jarvis?
I'd be happy to second that nomination.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for the incoming chair of the civic year 2020-21?
There are no other requests to speak, Chair.
So could I welcome Councillor Terry Tyler to take over the chair of the meeting? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. So just catching up. What I need to do is read my, thank you very much for everybody for voting for me or not voting against me, that's the case may be. I'm very, very honoured to be the chair for this coming year. I need to read out my statement. I, Terence Tyler, having been elected to the office of chairman for the District Council of North Hertfordshire, I hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code of conduct which for the time being applies to me as a councillor of North Hertfordshire District Council. Yeah. I'd like to advise you that I will be having a consort this year, which is actually my cousin, but it's Mrs. Deborah Freeman, and hopefully you'll be able to meet her at some stage during the future when something like the lockdown comes off. I'd like to thank very much for Councillor Jean Green for her work over the past year as chairman of the council, and ask members to vote on a formal vote of thanks for her. Can I ask the committee and members scrutiny manager to conduct the vote? Hilary?
Okay, so the vote is ready to be taken. So can you please vote using the yes, no, and raise hand buttons on your tablet or computer. Yes is agree with the motion, no is disagree with the motion, and a raise hand is to abstain. Has everybody finished voting? Yes. No. Okay, the voting has stopped now, and the vote of thanks is carried at with 34 votes for. Thank you.
Fabulous. I'm just going to say that during these difficult times with the COVID-19, that obviously the chains of office will be moved around once we can do, delivered to the chair and vice chair in the future. What I've got is item 2 now on the agenda is the apologies for absence, and there are none. Is that still true, officers?
Yes, no apologies.
Thank you.
Chairman, Richard Thake, may I come in, please?
Yes, of course, Richard.
I have noticed that many members have yet to cancel their voting intentions on the last vote. Unless they do so, they'll remain up there and mess up the process in the future.
Richard, I think they've gone now. I think there must be.
Yeah, Councillor Thake, I've cleared all those now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we move on to item 3, which is election of the vice chair of the council for the civic year 2020-21. Can I invite nominations, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Val Bryant for Vice Chair of the Council for the coming year.
Thank you. If just wait for me to ask for you. Thank you. Right. So, can I have a seconder for Kate, please? Kate Aspinall, please.
I would like to second that nomination for Val Bryant, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other nominations?
Councillor Levitt wishes to speak.
David Levitt, yes, Councillor Levitt would like to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to nominate Councillor David Barnard for Vice Chairman of the Council.
Do you have a seconder for that?
Councillor Hunter is waiting to speak.
Councillor Hunter? Are you seconding? Councillor Hunter?
I think you're on mute, Councillor
Sorry,
Hunter.
I'd like to second that nomination.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to seek advice from the officers. Do we take a vote on the first proposal first and then the second?
So what I'll do, Chair, is ask people to vote for Councillor Bryant, either yes, no, abstain, and then we'll do a second vote for Councillor Barnard, yes, no, abstain. So we'll vote for that Councillor Val Bryant be Vice Chair of the Council. If you can vote now, please.
Got lots of hands for it. Oh, it's abstention. It's abstentions. Yeah.
Everyone finish voting, please. Is it 4? Okay. Can I now have the votes for Councillor Barnard? We'll just clear the, right, all the votes are cleared now. So can I have all the votes for Councillor Barnard, please? Has everybody finished voting? 9, 10, 5, just counting, just one moment. Thank you. Councillor Bryant received 26 votes for, Councillor Barnard 19, so Councillor Val Bryant is the Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Hilary. Val, can I ask you to read your declaration for Vice Chairman, please?
Thank you. I, Val Bryant, having been elected to the office of Vice Chair, the District of North Hertfordshire, hereby declare that I will take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the Code of Conduct, which for the time being applies to me as the Councillor of North Hertfordshire Council, District Council.
Val, is there anything else you'd like to say at this point?
I'd like to thank the members who voted for me. I'm very proud to be elected Vice Chair and hope to do my best during the year. I'd like to advise you that my consult will be Dr. Stuart Bryant.
Thank you. We now move on to item 4, which is Chair's announcements. But before I do, I just wanted to offer my sincere condolences regarding the loss of Alan. Very upsetting, and he will be sadly missed.
I did raise my hand to speak.
Sorry, I can't see it.
Apologies, David, we can't see it, but
is your hand raised?
I pressed a little button which said raise hand.
There's no raised hand at the moment, David.
No, there isn't now because it's been erased, but it was pressed.
Would you like to speak? Please do.
With your permission, Chair, I would like to congratulate the Chair and the Vice Chair on their election, and I'd like to wish them an enjoyable and fruitful year in their office serving the constituents of North Hertfordshire.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Checking to see if anybody else is wishes to speak. Right, we're going on to Chairman's announcements then. audio recording. In accordance with the council's policy, this meeting is being audio recorded as well as filmed. The audio recordings will be available and view on mod.gov and the film recording on NHDC YouTube channel. As previously stated, we have declared a climate emergency. Members are reminded that this council has declared a climate emergency, and this is a serious decision that means that there is an emergency for all of us. This is an emergency for all of us, officers and members. Have a mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks to benefit the district with this emergency declared. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded to make any declarations of interest before the item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Is there anybody wishing to declare any items of interest? Nope. Rules of debate. I'm reminding members again of the rules of debate that have already been explained by the committee member and scrutiny manager. Is everybody happy with the way the debate will be conducted? If there's any questions, it'd be good to have them now. Nope. The next agenda, next item is the Chair's charity. I've been working through ones that I'd like to sponsor, but at this point, I would like to defer my declaration of which charity or charities, there may be two, that I'm going to support until the next meeting. Hopefully that's acceptable to everybody. Right, the next one is a schedule of council meetings for 2020-21. Can I call upon Martin Steershanscombe to move?
Thank you, Chair. Can I formally move the schedule of meetings for the civic year 2021? And in doing so, can I particularly thank Hilary and her colleagues for their flexibility in adjusting the schedule as a result of the pandemic and how we've had to move this meeting and other meetings back. So I formally move that, and I believe Councillor Clark will second.
Councillor Clark?
Yes, I'm more than happy to second and thank the committee services for all their hard work with all the changes. They thoroughly deserve that thanks. Thank you.
Absolutely. Could I ask Hilary to take the vote, please, for the schedule of council meetings?
Sorry, Chair, just getting my papers in order. So the recommendations are that the programme of ordinary meetings for the council be approved for the civic year as detailed in the papers, and that the calendar of meetings for 2021 as attached at Appendix A be approved. Can I ask you all to vote? We need to remove, we've got Councillor Weeks and Councillor Rice. Did you actually want to speak, or were you voting?
I believe they're voting.
Okay, can we all vote, please? Have we all completed our voting? So the result, the motion is carried that the schedule of meetings be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. The appointment of deputy leader of the council, executive members and deputy executive members for this coming year of 2020-21. Can I call upon the leader of the council to advise?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I advise the council of the that my deputy again will be Councillor Paul Clark, and of the other cabinet members. And can I particularly thank the cabinet members and deputy members for their work over the past year to achieve the priorities of the council, and commend the cabinet to the council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, apologies, I have raised my hand, but I realise we're in difficult circumstances.
Yes, Councillor Harwood, please.
Just a point of order, please, Chair. I'll clear my hand as I speak. I notice, without naming names, there are several members of councillors that for this past 3 or 4 votes, however many we've had, that haven't voted at all. Committee services will, of course, know who they are. Can we just check that those members are able to vote? I just think it's funny that the same members haven't voted in anything.
Very good point. Officers? As Councillor Harwood got it spot on that the same people haven't voted on anything.
All I can do is ask if there is anybody that has been unable to vote, because I don't actually keep records of who voted how, because it's not been a recorded vote. I've only kept records of numbers.
That's reasonable. Can anybody raise their hand, or if they can raise their hand, actually, if they can't do it, raise their hand physically to say that they can't vote, and then we can address it. I can't see any hands raised at this point, but I've only got a third of the screen up. No hands. No, everybody can vote.
Councillor Fake has his hand raised.
Thank you, Chairman. I have been able to vote. The reason I raised my hand is I wish to make a point in respect of this. Unless members have got the participants list up and their name visible on it, and there are, after all, 55 odd people on the list, they won't know if they've successfully voted or not, because they won't see the symbol come up against their name. So they do need to ensure that they have their name visible, and to check when they vote to see whether the symbol comes up to the left of the microphone and the camera symbols, which are situated on the far right hand side of their name list. So unless they do that, they won't know. Thank you. I'm taking my hand down, sir.
Good point, Richard. Yes, but nobody seems to have raised their hand to say that they are having trouble voting, which
Yeah, Councillor Billing wants to speak.
Oh, Councillor Billing?
Which Billing?
Judy Billing. Sorry.
Judy Billing.
Judy?
Okay, I've unmuted. That was a problem for a moment. My experience when voting has been that my name has gone to the top of the list so that I can see that I've voted. Is that not true for everybody? So if it is true for everybody, people will know whether they voted or not, because their name is the first name that they see on the list, unless I am very much mistaken.
It depends if you've got the participants list open as well to see it.
Well, no, Chair, because on the sheet where you vote, your name is at the top of that sheet with the tick, cross and low hand.
Okay, maybe it's a bit different. I've got 2 screens, one with all the video and audio, and one I've got a separate screen with the participants on. So maybe it's very different from different devices.
Window.
But if I hadn't got the participants up, I wouldn't see them.
Chair, Councillor Morris wants to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. What Councillor Billing says is entirely correct. If you've got the list of participants up on your screen, when you vote your name, it does indeed go to the top of the screen on your own computer, presumably not elsewhere.
Okay, so it's just a different device that I'm using, a laptop. Thank you very much for that. So I think nobody seems to be registering they have an issue voting, so that's good. So we move on to item 7, which is changes to the Constitution recommended by Corporate Peer Challenge and flexibility of meetings regulation changes. Can I call upon Jeanette Thompson to present, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The report in front of you covers some proposed amendments that followed on from the peer review earlier on in the year, as well as some in relation to substitutes, and also following coronavirus regulations that are referred to as flexibility of meeting regulations. Appendix A sets out all the proposals, and with in red on the far right hand column on Appendix A, you'll see the proposed wording. We also have Appendices B to D that have the Cabinet terms of reference with the wording in relation to overview and scrutiny. I am aware that there are some proposed amendments that are due to be tabled in relation to calling for the Planning Control Committee, substitutes, presentation to the public, as well as licensing and appeals. I would like to give some advice on one of the matters when it comes up, and that's in relation to substitutes, and I have comments in relation to two others when they are addressed, Chair. So I think it's more appropriate to do it as we go along with those proposed amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call upon Councillor Steers-Hanscom to move?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm moving the recommendations in full. I know we're having the amendments later on. There is one of the proposed amendments where there are two options. And can I make it clear, that's on page 26 on the paper copy of the agenda, section 8.4.5 C3, and it will be the second option there that I'm moving. That will become clear when we get to the appropriate amendment on that item. So I'll move it. I believe Councillor Clark will second.
Councillor Clark? Thank you.
Happy to second that, including the reference to the second option in 8.45C little 3.
Okay, can I call upon Councillor Levitt to propose some amendments as published on the website? Councillor Levitt?
Thank you, Chairman. Do you wish me to take these amendments one at a time so we can debate and vote on them? Would that be the easiest way?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, David, can you repeat that?
Yeah. Do you want me to take them one at a time so we can debate and vote on each amendment as we go through?
Yes. Yes. Okay then. Yeah, I think that's the only way we can do it. You couldn't do it in block, could we?
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to be clear on that. The first change is to section 8.4.5, little c, little 3, which is plan calling by members. It's looking again at the second option, and the amendment will read the first bit within 3 weeks, etc., will stay the same. And then the last bit, number 1, should read with the amendment, detailing the reasons based upon one or more relevant material planning considerations and detailing the reasons that the matter is in the public interest. You will notice I've replaced there valid with with relevant, and put and detailing the reasons in there. The bit I have removed in the amendment is the bit about in the opinion of the service director, regulatory, or the chair of the planning control committee. Main reason for that is the wording is a little bit ambiguous on that. That would allow one or the other to override the other, because one's opinion could override the other one's. He either has to be and or take it out altogether. And I think, quite honestly, taking it out altogether is the easiest way, because it would be very obvious if there is a valid reason, and it would be very obvious that the reason for the public interest. And I don't think we actually need a separate adjudicator on that one, as to whether it's valid or not.
Chair, once it's seconded, I just have a comment on that.
Yes, yes. So have I got a seconder for that first amendment?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second that and reserve my right to speak.
Yes, Chair, I just wanted to point out under C1 and 2, we use the term valid. So if you are going to change that reference from valid to relevant, I would suggest we need to marry the terminology up, otherwise it could cause confusion in terms of what's the difference between what's a valid one and what's a relevant one.
Okay, if we move to debate, I've got Councillor Steers-Hanscom wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm somewhat confused by this amendment because I think it's doing the opposite of what the intention is. And I think it's all a matter of interpretation of the word or. When initially we looked at this amendment, it was put in so that it was the service director, regulatory, and the chair of the planning control committee that had to agree that there was a valid planning committee, planning reason for the matter to go to the committee. The reason for changing that to or was so that either of them could confirm that it's a valid planning matter. Now, as we all know, particularly those of us who sat on planning committees, that when it comes to deciding whether something is a valid planning matter, it is a matter of opinion. And certainly on the borderline cases, it's very much a matter of opinion. And therefore, quite deliberately, if either the service director, regulatory, or the chair, then it will go to committee. In other words, the service director, regulatory cannot stop something going to committee if that's what members want, which is why we put in the or in that particular case. So, I mean, it's up to members, but I would strongly argue that there's a much more of a protection for members for something to go to the planning committee if we have this written in, so that the chair of the planning committee can have the final say as to whether it's a valid planning matter. So I would argue that we should either withdraw the amendment or oppose it. But it's up to members. But I think there's a far stronger protection for members having what they want go to planning committee if you leave in the wording as it is at the moment and oppose the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you. Yes, I just really want to focus, Councillor Hanscom, on the verb around valid versus the proposal, which is relevant. I realise these are small words, but small words have big meanings. And the NPPF is a very complicated, and planning is a very complicated issue, as we of course realise. But our job as councillors is to represent our members. And I wouldn't expect members to understand in detail the planning considerations like my fellow councillors and I do. I think by changing the verb valid to relevant, I could see how one of the people mentioned could say, well, that's not legally compliant under planning regulations. Our job as councillors on the Planning Control Committee is to judge the relevance of something versus the legal validity of it. If something is legally valid, that's a decision we choose to make that can be then taken to appeal. If it is relevant in terms of access to lights or those relevant planning conditions that aren't legally allowed, then that is one thing. I just think by saying relevant, we're holding ourselves to hostage by saying it has to be in the rule book in order for that appeal to come forward. That's why I would ask my colleagues and fellow councillors to vote at least for the amendment to change the word valid to relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vague.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say, I listened to what Martin Steers-Hanscom was saying, Councillor Hanscom was saying. Sadly, my interpretation of the relevant paragraph there is different from his. It seems to me that by allowing the regulatory or the chairman of the council or the director to veto a call-in on the basis that they do not consider it to be a valid objection is a step too far. Now, I fully and absolutely accept that we have to do something about the nonsense of the call-ins for political expediency. You're talking to a man who probably was dubbed the most unpopular man in North Hertfordshire when I had the temerity to take away from the area committees their planning function and put it into a single standalone trained cross-district committee. This has worked well, but there are still excesses, still members who do not fully perhaps understand that it is a quasi-legal situation and call these things in, because it is easier to do so when facing the demands of a potential voter than it is not. However, to have someone be able to veto whether or not a subjective or issue that is on the edge causes me great concern, and I have to say I would not be able to support the amendment as originally put forward, and would want to support the one that David Levitt has put forward. It is a matter of concern. I acknowledge the difficulties that were faced, and I would love to find a more convenient and better way to deal with the excesses that do occur.
Thank you. Councillor Mantle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 points. I didn't actually follow the last speech because of what I have in front of me, nobody has a veto on call-in unless both the service director and the chairman agree that it's irrelevant to call something in. And second point, I think valid is a much more sensible than relevant. Who decides what's relevant? That's the committee. Whether it's valid is a matter of fact. It's a valid planning objection, or it's one that's been disallowed on previous occasions by an appeal. I would suggest that the original wording is seriously better than the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Morris. Councillor Morris.
Councillor Morris, can you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you. So I'll start again. So if the service director thought that the call-in was not valid, but the chair of planning thought it was valid, it would still be called in. Is that correct or not? Thank you.
Martin Steers-Hanscom, can he respond?
I'm happy to, Chair. Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Morris is correct.
Chair, do you need any just further qualification on the legal side? I think Councillor Harwood was saying about the word relevant as opposed to valid. The key words in that phrase are material considerations. Whether you have relevant or valid in front of it, it's that part that's the key bit of it. It would be, wrong to assume that it still has to, still has to be relevant for you to be able to call that in, or valid, however you want to phrase it. It's the material nature of it in planning terms.
Thank you. Councillor McNally.
Yes, at the risk of engaging in semantics, because that, after all, is what we're doing at the moment, I beg to differ with Councillor Mantle and previous speakers who'd said that if the service director regulatory and the chair of the planning control committee disagree, then the matter would be called in, because that's not what the words say, that's not what that phrase says. It says, in the opinion of the service director regulatory or the chair of the planning control committee. And that means either or to me. So one can overrule the other, but there's nothing in that amendment which dictates who has primacy.
Martin Steers-Hampton, could you respond?
I'm rather loath to, because I've already spoken, but I think Councillor McNally is wrong. That clearly, if either, if you read the whole thing, member requests, I mean, if you go right, the Planning Control Committee shall determine within 3 weeks of the matter in the weekly list if a member requests in writing the matter to be determined by committee based on a valid material planning committee in the opinion of the service director regulatory or the chair of the planning committee. In other words, if either of them believes it's a valid material planning committee planning consideration, then it will go to committee.
Thank you. Councillor Mantle, still wishing to speak?
something's going wrong with the participant system, my hand wasn't cleared and my name has now disappeared off the list.
Oh, okay, no problem. Councillor Judy Billing. Judy, are you muted? You're muted, Judy.
Sorry, yeah, I was having difficulty unmuting. I don't know why. It's odd. It's absolutely clear to me. I don't think it's a problem. I hope we're not going to spend all night on it. If both the service director and the chair want it called in, it will be called in. If neither of them wants it called in, it won't be called in. If one or other of them does, it will be called in. It's perfectly clear. I don't really know why we're trying to write tiny minutiae bits of words on constitutions in the annual meeting of the council.
Thank you. There are no more hands up, so I'm thinking we're going to move towards the vote. But do we vote on the original or the amendment first? Can I just have advice?
On the amendment.
Vote on the amendment.
Thank you. Okay, right. Hilary, can you take us through the vote for the amendment, please?
Chairman Richard Thake, I just wish to understand clearly before we do the vote, sir. Are we voting on the amendment to the amendment, in other words, David Levitt's amendment, or are we voting on Martin Steers-Hanscom's amendment?
Sorry, yes, the amendment as per Councillor Levitt's.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you're voting on the first amendment on the supplementary papers, which is in relation to paragraph 8.5 C3 regarding planning call-in by members. So can I ask members not to vote until such time as I ask you to, just so that we don't get confused with previous raised hands. So if I can ask you all to vote.
Hilary, I'm just going to clear everybody.
You're going to clear everybody, thank you.
Oh, and we're voting on the amendment.
We're voting on the first paragraph of the amendments on the supplementary from Councillor Levitt from the Conservative group regarding 8.4.5 C3 regarding planning call-in by members.
Thank you.
Okay. So if I can ask you to vote now, either for, against, or abstain. Thank you. Has everybody finished voting? So that amendment is lost. 24, 23 against, 2 abstain.
Thank you. So we move on to the original amendment as proposed by Councillor Steers-Hanscom. So we clear the votes down, please. Yeah.
Clear, Chair.
So everybody in favour of the original proposal in the our document, please vote. Yes.
Has everybody voted, please? Let me just count 1, 2. So that motion is carried, 25 for, 5 against, 16 abstain.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Levitt, we're taking these amendments one by one, so we move on to the next one.
Thank you, Chairman. Now, I have spoken to the legal officer on this one today, and I understand that if I propose this amendment, I'm probably proposing an illegal amendment. But if the legal officer could just clarify that for me and the reasons why.
Yes, thank you, Service Director, Legal and Community. The basis there's no clear legal path for having substitutes in the first place. Committee membership is actually a matter for council, although over the years we have, nationally, we agree that you can have named substitutes and they're appointed by full council. Again, we've diverged from that, but we have a slightly different, that we can actually replace the substitute. And the basis is that the membership of committees is known, it's open and transparent to all concerned. And also we did allow the proposal that 7 clear days before you could change a substitute, and that would allow the proper officer to notify that change, who was on there, and also legally to comply with the Local Government Act 1972, so that that member of the committee for that meeting could be summoned as required under the 72 Act. Obviously, if you only reduce it right down to the day of the meeting, you're not allowing that process to follow, so that especially for the quasi-judicial committees, you will open the council up to potential challenge. And so for that reason, and also when these notifications come in, part of the process is the proper officer has to check whether for example, in the Planning Control Committee, have they been trained? Have they acted as a ward advocate? Are they able to participate? And obviously just doing this on the day of the meeting does not allow for that sort of process to be followed and for the proper officer to note, actually take a note down of the decision that she has effectively taken as a delegated decision. So that is why the 7 clear days are set out. It gives it a slightly more than obviously the 5 clear days required for notification of the meeting. But that's for practical purposes. You could reduce that down in theory to 5 clear days, but that still would cause a potential issue if notification didn't get through to the relevant officer, etc. So for that reason, I'm certainly advising against the proposed amendment because I think it would open up issues for the council in terms of legal challenge.
Thank you. Chairman, in view of that legal advice and my conversation with Mr Thompson earlier today, I think it would be best if I withdrew that amendment.
Okay, so that amendments. Do you have any more amendments, Councillor Levitt?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Hopefully the next one will be a little easier to go through. This is 4.8.9 little d, presentations by the public. The proposed amendment is for actual presentations. The proposed amendment in the original papers for the actual presentation contents to be sent to the proper officer 2 days before the meeting. To me, this goes against the principles of freedom of speech and could be seen as an attempt to censure representations. As far as control goes over the content of that presentation, ultimately the chairman of the meeting has the ability to direct the person presenting as regards the relevance of the content and their conduct, etc. Therefore, my proposal amendment is to remove this amendment altogether. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We're open to debate. Is there anybody who wishes?
Chair, once seconded, I just want to comment on that.
Yes, please do.
It's Councillor Claire Strong. I'm happy to second that amendment and I reserve my right.
I would only say, Chair, that I could understand why this appears to be contentious because it's come up before, but this at the moment is also in relation to the fact that we have virtual meetings. And obviously at this current time, someone would still have to notify the council 2 days before that they wish to obviously make a presentation to the council. If there's an issue in terms on the day, the fact that we had the presentation beforehand would allow us still to take that into account if they drop out, if they're unable for their own reasons to participate. But this isn't legal advice, it's just the practicality of it. I think in terms of the human rights act of freedom of speech, I mean, as councillors will know, it's not an absolute right, it's still subject to formalities and conditions and restrictions in terms of those that use in reasonable terms and as prescribed by law. But in terms of this, I wouldn't say that that unduly prevents it. In fact, it allows you to consider any presentation that might be put forward rather than us having to either adjourn the meeting or come backwards and forwards if someone is making a presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Strong, you have your hand up?
That was to second the amendment.
Oh, okay. Councillor Martin Steers-Hanscom?
Yes, Chair. I have to say on this one, I'm completely open-minded. I can understand the arguments that Mrs. Thompson's made, but also the arguments in the moving. So I think I'll leave it to everyone to make their own mind up based on what you think of the arguments that have been put.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you. Well, I think whilst I can see that some people might see this as a way of preventing people from commenting, I don't think it really does. What it suggests is that if someone is going to make a presentation to the council, and they're usually quite substantial things, that they need to prepare it in advance, and that they need to submit it in advance, so members can perhaps have sight of the material, and that enables there to be a sensible discussion about the issues that they raise, with an opportunity to think about the questions that arise, rather than people being surprised by what's raised on the night. Clearly, there will be cases where people want to add additional material. There will be some cases where perhaps circumstances have changed. And I'm sure in those circumstances, the chair would use their discretion to ensure that the presentation could be amended to reflect the changed circumstances. But if I think back to the presentations we've had over the years before council on subjects like Churchgate, and Town Hall, on which we've had many on both of those, all the information that people wanted to impart to us was all well known a couple of days in advance. I'm sure that they'd already put their presentations together a couple of days in advance. And I said, I think it would enable a more considered consideration of what they have to say, and for us to ask more relevant questions, and for them to have more opportunity to influence the council's thinking rather than have less.
Thank you. Councillor Judy Billing.
Thank you, Chair. In the interests of delicious cross-party thinking here, I would like to support this amendment. I was thrilled to hear from the leader of the council that he had an open mind on it, because I took that to mean that I had permission to say what I'm going to say, which is that as the executive member for community engagement, my main mission as a councillor at the moment is to increase participation in any ways that I can think of that would make life easier for a wider cross-section of the people who might want to talk to us, who might have something come up which they think is quite urgent for us to hear about. And listening to Steve Jarvis, he's taken my mind back to some of those presentations he's referred to over the years. I would say, if anything, some of them will have been hideously over-prepared, and maybe sometimes listening to the spontaneous thoughts of people who've got something to say to us would do us a lot of good. So I would rather take away restrictions. I think suggesting that it's a way of controlling freedom of speech is a bit hyperbolic. I don't think it's that at all. But I do think it's time for us to be a bit more relaxed and not be afraid of anything that anyone wants to say to us, and have robust debates with people who come to talk to us and welcome their participation. So I'm going to do something absolutely terrible and vote for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. First, a rather sort of noddy question, and then a slightly more serious point. Just for my own sort of mental clarity here, when we say presentations, do we mean a sort of layman's terms presentation, and are we literally saying, please provide us your PowerPoint slides? Or do we mean a rather more formal, if you would like to address the council, we need to know what you want to say type thing? That was my anticipation, but I thought I'd just check. And yeah, my thought really on this was, if they provide what they want to say as some form of, here is the transcript of what I intend to speak to you about, and then they deviate from that, what would we do? Councillor Jarvis has said that, well, the chair would have discretion to allow this to go on, but I think we can rely on that at the moment without formalising it in this way. And yeah, I completely agree with Councillor Billing in saying that if we want to be a sort of more open and engaging council, then yes, we should be not throwing up additional barriers, even no matter how minor.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I find myself agreeing with Councillor Jarvis, Billing and so on. To ask for a formal representation to be lodged 48 hours beforehand, we live in a world that is changing and constantly changing. And not only that, opinions can change and new evidence may well come to the fore. So I think that we have to turn around and give the Speaker the opportunity to actually put forward the very best case that he can. If he starts deviating beyond the realms of sensibility, then that's why we have a chairman, as you very well know, sir. I personally think that this amendment should be removed and leave it to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the problem is that if the person hadn't actually didn't have their presentation ready 2 days before the presentation was due, they wouldn't be able to make the presentation, which doesn't sound very fair to me and somewhat undemocratic. So I support what Councillor Levitt is saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Billing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I support the amendment because there are a lot of people that aren't able to necessarily write down their speech or their presentation. So I think it would be useful that people in that sort of situation are still allowed to present to the council if they so wish.
Thank you. Councillor Muir. You're muted, Councillor Muir.
Hello. I can't see anything in here about asking questions of who presented anything from the general public. I know at the County Council we're allowed as councillors to ask 3 questions of any presentation, which I think is always a good thing for clarification. But I can't see anything in our document that allows that.
Jeanette, would you like to comment on that? Are you muted?
Yes, I think we actually freed that up the last time as well. So it used to be 3. I think it's even wider than that now. Certainly for the Planning and Control Committee.
Certainly the Planning Control Committee is up to 5 questions now. Is it in the Constitution? I thought it was.
No limit.
No limit.
Yeah, it's in the Constitution. It's updated since the last time.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Councillor Muir?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Strong?
Thank you, Chairman. And as a second motion, just really, can I say it's lovely to see the cross-party agreement to take on board this amendment. And certainly I know when we've sat through and had groups, some groups may want to come and bring their presentation and give us tell us in advance what they want to say. And that's their decision. But I think it really is, we should leave it that if they don't want to do that in advance, they don't have to. And I do think that if we make it very prescriptive, it will do exactly the opposite of what Councillor Judy Billing is trying to do, which is making the council much more easier for people to come along and to present to them and tell us what they would like to say. And I think it, to me, I think it's not the way that I would want our council to be, to saying that you can only come and speak to us if we've seen what you're going to say in advance. It's really not the sort of the open, friendly council I think we should want to be. So I hope that everybody will support this amendment. Thank you. And perhaps we could go to the vote.
We've still got Councillor Allen to speak. Thank you, though. We'll go to the vote soon.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask if the vote could be a recorded vote, please.
A recorded vote, then. Yes, it will be. So we're voting on the amendment as per Councillor Levitt's amendment first, yes?
So this is the amendment on the supplementary paper as 4.8.9D, presentations by the public, for the amendment in the papers to be removed so that there isn't a 2-day requirement sending
thank you
the speech. So as I call out your names, can you please, as it's a recorded vote, if I call out your names, can you please advise whether you're voting for, against or abstaining? Councillor Albert.
For.
Councillor Allen.
For.
Councillor Aspinwall.
For.
Councillor Barnard.
For the proposal from David Levitt.
Councillor Claire Billing.
Unmute.
Sorry, Claire, I didn't hear you.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Judy Billing.
For.
Councillor John Bishop.
For.
Councillor Ruth Brown.
For.
Councillor Val Bryant.
For.
Councillor Paul Clark.
For.
Councillor Sam Collins.
For.
Councillor Bill Davidson.
For.
Councillor George Davis.
For.
Councillor Deakin Davis.
For.
Councillor Dennis Harburg.
For.
Councillor Morgan Derbyshire.
For.
Councillor Faye Frost.
For.
Councillor Jean Green. Councillor Jean Green. Sorry, are you? Can't see you at the moment. Councillor Green, are you? Councillor Green, you're muted at the moment. Can you unmute yourself and tell me how you're voting, please?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Grindle.
For.
Councillor Harwood.
For.
Councillor Hone.
For.
Councillor Hoskins.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Hunter.
For.
Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Councillor Levitt.
For.
Councillor Mantle.
For.
Councillor McNally.
For.
Councillor Moody.
For.
Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Muir.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
For.
Councillor Nguala.
For.
Councillor North.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Rice.
For.
Councillor Ruggiero Chakir.
For.
Councillor Shanley.
For.
Councillor Stanier.
For.
Councillor Steers Hanscom.
For.
Councillor Strong.
For.
Councillor Tart.
For.
Councillor Thake.
For.
Councillor Tyler.
For.
Councillor Tyson. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Tyson. Councillor
I'm just
Tyson.
voting.
Oh, did you? Sorry, Councillor Tyler, did I miss you off?
No, you didn't, but
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Weeks.
For.
Okay, have I missed anybody? In that case, it was unanimous 4.
Thank you. Do we need to go back to the original amendment to vote, or no?
On a point of order, Chair, I think we now go to the last amendment from Councillor Levitt, and then we'll need to do a vote on the substantive once we've dealt with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Levitt, then, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Last amendment, and this one hopefully won't be contentious either. It's relating to 8.3.1, the licensing appeals reserve member. And I fully appreciate the need to have a reserve member because we've had occasions when we've had to drag somebody in and delay the meeting for a time. However, the way it is written, it doesn't clarify the position of that reserve. It's the way it's written at the moment. It's quite clear that the reserve doesn't have a vote, but it doesn't say anything about their ability to participate when they are reserve. So my amendment puts in clarifies the point that they cannot participate in the meeting. In other words, they can't influence the meeting until the reserve is called in, and then they can vote and they can fully participate. I hope that helps. It's clarification just to make it ultra clear. Thank you, Chairman.
I wondered, Chair, if I could second that amendment. I fully support it, and I think I would commend the council to support it.
Thank you. So we've got a proposer and a seconder. Does anybody else would like to speak, or we can take it if there's no room, if nobody wants to debate it, then we can move straight to the vote.
Yes, if you can all vote, please. Have you all voted?
No.
That's unanimous, Hilary.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Unanimous 4, by the way. Sorry, I didn't explain that.
Thank you. So that's carried. So we're moving on to the full council approves the proposed amendments set out in Appendix A, except for those ones we've just amended.
As amended.
As amended, sorry. Yeah. So this will be the full vote for the whole of the changes recommended as amended. If we can take it to the vote, Hilary.
Yes, certainly. So you're voting for the recommendation that full council approves the proposed amendments as set out in Appendix A as amended. So if you can please vote now. Have you all finished voting? Let me just count those. Thank you. That's finished voting, so the motion is carried. Thank you.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. Then we move on to item 8, the appointment of members of committees for 2020-21. Chair, to remind members that the revised Appendix B has been published, having been notified of the outstanding appointments to the Conservative vacancies.
Chair, sorry, before we proceed any further, may I request a quick comfort break?
Yes. Is everybody in agreement with that? What do you want? 5 minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay, we'll suspend the meeting. It's 20:58 for 5 minutes. If you leave yourselves logged on, that's the right thing to do, isn't it? So make sure we're all here still.
Yeah, please leave yourselves logged on and just mute yourselves and turn the cameras off for the time being.
Okay, so yeah, roughly 9:05, we'll be back. Yeah. Can I call the meeting back to order?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have everybody back? Councillor Muir? Councillor Brown?
Yes, Councillor Muir is missing.
Councillor Hone?
I'm here.
Councillor Muir? Are we able to contact him, or are we assuming he won't be available for this part of the...
I'm here.
Oh, you can? Oh, Mike, we can't see you.
Yeah, I don't know what's gone wrong.
Officers and advice that we can't see Michael, but we can hear him. They will take part in the debate.
I assure you I am here.
It looks like you need to flip your view around. It looks as though it's
there you are. Yes, we've got you. Fabulous.
Right, okay.
Right, we'll move. We're just about to start item 8, appointment of members of the committees for 2021. Jed, I'm to remind you that their revised Appendix B has been published and been notified of the outstanding appointments to Conservative vacancies.
Can I move the record, Chair?
Yes, yeah, leader of the council, can you appoint the...
You'll see in your report that there are 5 recommendations that appoint the members to the various committees. So I will move that formally. I believe Councillor Clark will second.
Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I have pleasure in seconding. I just wanted to make one clarification. On page 54 of the papers, we have in front of us the council tax setting committee has in the list of substitutes Councillor Collins twice. I'm not sure if that has been updated. One Sam is good enough. It should be Councillor Tyler who is the second substitute. If that could be updated, and as I say, I'm happy to second that.
Okay, is there anybody like to speak on the debate? No hands up. Can I confirm that with the officers?
Yes, that's right, Chair.
Yeah. In that case, we can move to vote.
Okay, we're voting on the 5 recommendations, but with the amendment that one of the Sam Collins is changed for Terry Tyler, and I apologise for that. So if you can vote, please.
Maybe I'm Sam Collins too, am I?
Yes. Okay, has everybody voted? In that case, the motion's carried with 27-4. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. Sorry, I've got a recommendation here in line with the feedback from 2020 peer challenge. The membership of the overview and scrutiny committee be reduced by 12, currently 16. I've got that right, officers, right?
Yes, Chair, that was all part of that recommendation that you just voted upon.
Okay.
That was already approved in any event through the constitutional report, the amendments you approved there.
All right, so it's through to 2.5. Okay, so we voted. We're moving on to item 9 then, appointment of the chair and vice chair of committees 2020-21. If I can call upon the leader Councillor Martin Steers-Handcombe to.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to move the chairs and vice chairs in the list there, and Councillor Clark again will second.
Councillor Clark.
Happy to second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any debate? I have no hands raised. I just confirm that with the officers.
Yeah, there's no hands to raise, Chairman.
In that case, we can move to the vote.
Okay, we're voting on the recommendation in the paper that the chairs and vice chairs of committees, except area committees, be appointed in accordance with the details set out in Appendix A of the report. So if I can ask you all to vote, please. If you've finished voting, then the motion is carried with 26-4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I raise a point of order?
Yes, Councillor Clark.
Normally during the annual council meeting, we elect the chairs of the area committees, which was referred to there. Could I have clarification for all members that the process for that this year, please?
Chair, would you like me to explain?
Yes, please. Thank you, Melanie.
Yes, members. So the chair and vice chair will be elected at each of the area committees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Clark?
Yep.
I seem to have some pages missing from. Okay. We're moving on to item 10 then, key decisions, annual report on cases of special urgency. Can I call upon Martin Steers-Handcombe as the leader to give us a...
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is the report that has to come to the council every year, and usually it's a very thin report, but of course, as a result of the pandemic, the report is much thicker this time. And I think it's an appropriate at this time again to thank the committee services and colleagues for the efforts they made to ensure that members, as far as possible, were able to contribute to all the decisions that were made at the time in between being able to hold face-to-face meetings and being able to hold meetings like this. And you'll see a record of the decisions that were taken in that way. So I'd like to move the report, as I say, with particular thanks to all those who made it possible to continue democracy during this particular period. Thank you, Chair.
And have a seconder, please.
I'm happy, delighted to second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Is there any debate?
No, Chair, nobody wishing to speak.
Okay, and then thank you, Melanie. Please take us through the vote, Hilary.
This is just a report to note. So
oh, just a note. All right, it's duly noted then.
Yeah.
Right. Item 11, nomination of representatives on outside organisations and other bodies for 2020-21. Can I ask for a report from the Democratic Services Manager?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is the report on the outside organisations and other bodies. The appendice has been amended so that it reflects all the nominations. We also have one additional body to add to that, and that's the Survivors Against Domestic Abuse, and the Executive Member for Housing and Environmental Health is recommended to be appointed to this body.
Okay, is this to be duly noted or voted?
Voted. No, there are recommendations.
I think I need to move the recommendation, Chair, which I'm very happy to do.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
Mr. Chairman, willing to second.
Okay, is there any debate?
Chair, you do have some speakers there. Councillors Brown wishing to speak.
Ah, yes, I've seen them now. Yes, Councillor Brown.
I noticed that on the Royston Town Twinning Association, you've nominated me and then there's a vacancy. So there are 2 nominations. I sit on the Twinning Committee already, and our constitution says that there should be only 1 representative from North Hants District Council. And since I already sit on that committee, I was going to suggest that it should be someone else. I know that says it's vacant at the moment, but I think we need to amend our records to say only 1 representative from North Hants to be in line with our own the Twinning constitution.
I will check that out next week, and yeah.
Okay.
If you wish to, if we leave that one then as a vacancy, and then we can, or the group leaders can advise me once Hilary has investigated that further.
Okay, so we can take that. Do we defer the vote then until we have an update?
No, Chair, you vote.
Chairman, Richard Thake here. Sorry, Richard. I think I've come across these little difficulties before in another place. I think it would be wise if we moved an amendment to enable the relevant group leaders and in conjunction with yourself to accept whoever that nomination actually is. Otherwise, you're going to have to bring it back to another meeting, which is quite ludicrous for an outside body. It's a perfectly sensible thing. Ruth has pointed out there is an error in our listings in terms of it being not within their constitution. Let's just move. Can I just move an amendment to enable it to happen without having to bring it back to an entire meeting, if that is legal? And I hope someone will second me.
Chair, I'm happy to second that. I think it's very appropriate to do that. So effectively, there's an additional recommendation that on this particular item, that the leaders of the groups deal with it once we've had a report.
Okay.
And Chair, can I also draw your attention to 2.2 in the report, which does say that any vacancies, group leaders can notify me as and when they arise, and a representative to those vacancies.
Okay. Is there a debate for the amendment?
Can I just come in, Councillor Claire Strong here? Can I just point out?
Yeah.
Can I point out that the Hertfordshire Building Preservation Trust, that's shown as Councillor Jean Green, and I think that should now be changed because it is in that position the chairman of the council.
Okay. Is that correct?
Yes, it should be listed as chairman of the council, which obviously Terry wasn't, Councillor Tyler wasn't elected as such until tonight, but you're correct, it should say as chairman of the council.
Thank you. Yes, that needs to be amended. Claire, your hand's still up. Would you like to speak still? Strong, Councillor Strong? No. Okay. Can we take us through the vote then, Hilary?
Certainly. So you're voting on the list of nominations of representatives on outside organisations for 2021 as set out in Appendix A, but as amended by Herts Building Preservation Trust being chairman of the council rather than Councillor Jean Green. And that the political group leaders notify Democratic Services Manager of nominations to the remaining vacancies or any changes to the existing representatives on outside organisations, and that subject to the necessary checks and consideration of insurance and governance of this body, survivors against domestic abuse, known as SADA, be added to the list of outside bodies, and that the executive member for housing and environmental health be nominated as a trustee to this organisation, and to clarify that the Royston Town Twinning will be marked as a vacancy, and following checks with that organisation, the group leaders will nominate to that organisation. So can I ask you to vote, please? You all finished voting? Thank you. That's carried with 28-4. Thank you.
With that concludes the meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for their time and their patience in this, during this difficult and different times of doing everything online. I formally close the meeting at 21:21.
Chairman, can I ask for a point of order, please?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Could I ask for a point of order, please?
Yes, Mr. Councillor Home.
Yes, it's normal practice for the chairman of the council to invite us somewhere for a drink afterwards. I'm wondering where that's going to be, because I'm all dressed up, ready to go.
Yes, a virtual drink, I guess.
Your own kitchen, boy.
I also had a point of order. I tried to put my hand up in the proper way to say it. But I did want to say, before you close the meeting, a massive vote of thanks to Hilary and Melanie and the IT department for having made this actually about the smoothest virtual council meeting you could possibly have. Yeah. And after some of the hiccups earlier a few weeks ago, when I've been, you know, as critical as anybody else, I just want to say this is brilliant. And let's never, ever go to a meeting again. It's great like this. Thank you.
Fully agree, Councillor Billy.
Hillary.
Thank you, Judy, and thank
Before
you.
you go, can I have a quick one-to-one with you? I need an address of one of the officers, which I'm having difficulty getting to.
We won't do it via this because it could be on the public
stream, won't it?
Stream. So I'll
speak to you tomorrow.
Email me.
Is there anyone else who'd like to say anything before I do formally close the meeting?
No.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for making it.
Congratulations, Terry. Well done.
Thank you.
Good night,
Terry.
Good night.
Bye,
Thank you. Well done, team.
Thanks, everybody. Congratulations.